They say the early bird catches the worm, but I say, the early riser catches life. You see greatness, it doesn't wake up at noon. Discipline doesn't hit snooze. And dreams, they don't chase people who sleep in. You want to change your life. You want to build something real. Then you start by beating the sun. Because if you can conquer the morning, you can conquer the day. And if you can conquer the day, then baby, you can conquer the world. Discipline begins before dawn. It's not just a phrase, it's a reality that separates the average from the exceptional. Before the world stirs, before traffic fills the streets, before notifications flood your phone, there exists a sacred window of time. It's quiet, still undisturbed, and it belongs to the disciplined. Most people overlook the early hours. They see sleep as more valuable than preparation. But the truth is, those who get up early aren't just waking up. They're declaring victory over comfort, over laziness, over the part of themselves that wants to stay soft. Getting up before the sun rises is one of the clearest signs of a person who has made a decision to take control. Because it's not natural, it's not easy, it doesn't feel good at first. But discipline was never supposed to feel good. Discipline is about doing what must be done even when you don't want to. And that early hour, when it's cold, when it's dark, when the bed feels warm and the world feels far away, that's when discipline shows up. That's when the real work begins. It's not about just opening your eyes, it's about opening your mind, about showing up before anyone else, putting in the reps, mental, physical, spiritual, while the rest of the world is still lost in dreams. Because while they're dreaming, you're building. While they're resting, you're rising. That morning hour is an investment in yourself. It's quiet currency. No one sees it, no one applauds it, but it stacks day after day. It builds something inside you that others can't fake. And here's the thing, waking up early isn't about being a morning person. It's about being a purpose-driven person. It's about having something so important, so powerful that your comfort becomes irrelevant. It's about making a choice that today will not be wasted. That today will not be given over to randomness or reaction. When you wake up early, you take back the hours that others lose. You create space to think, to prepare, to plan, to sharpen your mind before the chaos begins. Discipline before dawn teaches you that time is not promised. And the best way to respect it is to use it before it disappears. When you wait until the day grabs hold of you, you're already behind. But when you lead the day, when you meet it head on with focus and intention, it bends to your will. That's what those early hours give you, an edge ahead start, a rhythm. One that's not dictated by emails, alerts, distractions, or obligations, but by you. The quiet before sunrise is the arena of the focused. That's where goals are clarified. That's where self-doubt is confronted. That's where identity is shaped in the moments no one else sees. Because if you can control what you do when no one's watching, then you're already ahead of most people. That's what discipline looks like. Not glamorous, not loud, not celebrated, just consistent, relentless, grounded. And make no mistake, there will be days you don't want to do it. Days you'll want to pull the covers over your head. But that's the test. That's the difference. That's the line between those who hope and those who execute. When you wake up early, you teach yourself that your feelings don't run the show, your principles do. And in a world driven by convenience, discipline is your unfair advantage. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. But you do need to show up, and the earlier you show up, the more of life you get to own. Those quiet hours are where warriors are forged, where confidence is built, where consistency is born. You don't wait for motivation, you create it. You don't ask for permission, you take the first step, and that step starts before dawn. That alarm clock becomes more than a sound, it becomes a call to action, a reminder that you've got work to do, that no one is going to hand you greatness, you've got to claim it. And claiming it means sacrificing ease for excellence. It means getting out of bed when your mind tells you to stay in. It means facing the cold, the dark, the silence, and stepping into it anyway. Because what you do in that hour sets the tone. It lays the foundation. It proves to yourself that you mean what you say, that your goals aren't just dreams, they're orders, non-negotiable, real. Success doesn't sleep in. It rises with purpose. It gets up when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when no one else is watching. It doesn't hit snooze. It doesn't wait until it feels ready. Success understands that the world isn't going to slow down, and it sure isn't going to wait for someone who's still under the covers. Success is earned in the hours most people throw away. In those quiet, early moments when discipline is hard and comfort is tempting, success is being built. Not in public, not on stage, but in the shadows of the morning. The most successful people in the world don't rise with the sun by accident. They do it by design. Not because they love waking up early, but because they've made a decision that their goals are bigger than their sleep, that their mission matters more than their comfort. They wake up early not to impress anyone, not to post about it, but because they know that time is the most valuable currency they have. And every minute they waste is a minute they're giving away to someone who's willing to get up and take it. You can't be serious about chasing success and sleeping in at the same time. That's just not how it works. The clock doesn't care about your excuses. The sun doesn't care about your intentions. What matters is action. What matters is consistency. The early morning is where winners separate themselves. While others are still dreaming, the successful are planning, working, pushing. They've already set the tone for their day before most people even open their eyes. That's not luck. That's not natural talent. That's commitment. Success is attracted to energy. to discipline to urgency. And nothing shows urgency more clearly than someone who's up before the world, already moving toward their goals. Because it sends a message, not just to others, but to yourself. It tells you that you're serious, that you're not here to play games, that you're not hoping things fall into place. You're making them fall into place. And that kind of mindset, that kind of ownership doesn't happen after sleeping in. It's forged in the grind of early mornings, day after day, when no one claps and no one cares, but you do it anyway. Sleeping in might feel good in the moment, but long term, it's expensive. It costs you momentum. It costs you clarity. It costs you time you'll never get back. Time that could have been used to grow, to learn, to move closer to your goals. The difference between someone who's rising to their potential and someone who's stuck in the same place often comes down to how they treat their mornings. One sees it as an opportunity. The other sees it as an inconvenience. But success doesn't care how you feel about the morning. It only respects what you do with it. Early mornings test your commitment. They expose how bad you really want it. Anyone can stay up late. Anyone can talk a big game when things are easy. But how many people are willing to rise before the sun, over and over, just to get a head start? That's where champions are made. Not in the big moments, but in the small ones. The private ones. The uncomfortable ones. Success is built in those tiny decisions you make when no one's watching, especially when it would be so easy to roll over and go back to sleep. There's a reason the morning is quiet. It's not meant for distraction. It's meant for direction. When the world hasn't yet started pulling at your attention, that's your time to lead yourself, to center your mind, to sharpen your intentions. The successful use this window not just to get ahead, but to align themselves with what matters. They understand that if you wait until the day begins to decide your priorities, you've already lost control. But if you start early, you dictate the pace. You move with purpose. You create momentum before most people have even begun. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about being better than who you were yesterday. And the best way to do that is to make use of the time that others waste. The morning gives you that chance, but you have to take it. You have to make it yours. Success doesn't reward the one who wants it most. It rewards the one who proves it through action. And the first action of every day is the decision to get up and get after it. If you want to rise, you have to rise early. Not just once, not just when you feel inspired, but every single day, no matter what. Own your morning, own your life. The way you start your day sets the tone for everything that follows. It's the first decision you make, the first battle you either win or lose. And that battle isn't just against sleep. It's against hesitation, procrastination, distraction. When you choose to rise early and take control of your morning, you are telling the world and yourself that you are in charge. You're not waiting for the day to happen to you. You're happening to the day. People underestimate how powerful the morning truly is. It's a blank slate, a quiet space before the world floods in with noise, demands, expectations. If you claim those first few hours, you're not just being productive. You're creating mental clarity. You're giving yourself room to breathe, to think, to prepare. You're setting intentions instead of reacting to circumstances. And the person who sets the tone early is the person who holds the advantage all day long. The morning belongs to the focused. It belongs to those who have a mission. You can't expect to lead your life if you can't even lead your morning. That's where it starts. That's where the discipline is born. That's where you decide every single day that you're not going to drift through life on autopilot. Because drifting doesn't lead to purpose. It doesn't lead to excellence. It leads to repetition, to sameness, to wasted potential. And the key to breaking out of that pattern is simple: take command of your morning. Think about how many people wake up and immediately hand their time over to distractions. They check their phones, scroll through social media, dive straight into stress. They wake up already behind, already anxious, already pulled in 100 directions. But the moment you choose to own your morning, that all changes. You start with intention. You set your own pace. You move deliberately, not frantically. And that difference, that quiet power, it follows you into everything you do. Owning your morning is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about identifying the habits, routines, and rituals that align with your vision and repeating them with consistency. Whether that means exercise, meditation, reading, writing, planning, whatever fuels you, that's what should fill your morning. Because those first hours are sacred. They're your foundation. And if you build them with strength, the rest of the day stands tall. This isn't about perfection, it's about preparation. When you start your morning grounded, focused, and aligned, you don't just react to problems, you respond with purpose. You don't just handle stress, you manage it with clarity. You don't get thrown off course by every challenge. You stay centered because you've already built that strength before the sun even rose. That's the edge. That's the power of taking full ownership of the start of your day. You don't need to own the whole day. You don't need to control every hour. You just need to win the first one. If you win that first hour, if you dominate it with intention, with presence, with energy, you create momentum. And momentum is everything, because once it's moving, it's harder to stop. A strong morning flows into a strong afternoon, which turns into a focused evening. It all starts with that initial moment, the choice to own your morning. Most people don't realize that success isn't a single event, it's a pattern of behaviors, repeated over and over quietly, when no one is watching. And that pattern usually begins the second you open your eyes. Are you going to get up and lead your life? Or are you going to fall into the same routine that keeps you stuck? That's the question the morning asks you every single day. And every day you have a choice. You don't need external motivation. You don't need perfect conditions. All you need is a reason and the discipline to follow through. Because owning your morning isn't about what happens in those hours. It's about who you become in the process. It's about becoming someone who keeps promises to themselves, someone who shows up with energy, someone who values their time. And that kind of person doesn't wait for life to begin. They begin it every day by rising with intention and taking the lead. Silence builds clarity. In the early hours of the morning, before the noise begins, before the world demands your attention, there is silence. And in that silence, there is power. Most people never take the time to hear it. They rush into the day reacting, moving, chasing tasks, never pausing long enough to think clearly. But those who rise early and sit with that silence discover something different. They find space, they find direction, they find themselves. The modern world is loud. Notifications, conversations, distractions, obligations. They compete for your focus from the moment you wake up. If you don't intentionally create silence in your life, it will be taken from you. The morning gives you that silence freely, but only if you're willing to rise early enough to claim it. That silence isn't emptiness. It's clarity waiting to be heard. It's your mind uncluttered, your thoughts unhindered, your priorities standing in plain view. There's a reason some of the most focused, most successful people protect their early mornings. It's not just about being productive. It's about having time to think, to reflect, to set intention, to align with what really matters. In the silence, your goals speak louder. Your values rise to the surface. The noise of the world fades away, and what remains is real, unfiltered, honest. That kind of clarity can't be bought. It can't be found in chaos. It's forged in stillness. When you wake up early and give yourself that silence, you begin to separate what's urgent from what's important. You stop running in circles and start moving with direction. You realize how often you've been pulled by things that don't deserve your energy. The silence reveals the distractions. It highlights the patterns. It shows you where your time has been going and whether or not it's been serving you. That's the kind of awareness that changes everything. You don't need answers from the outside when you give yourself time to hear the truth on the inside. Most people don't lack motivation, they lack clarity. They don't know where they're headed, not because they're incapable, but because they're drowning in noise. The world tells them what they should want, what they should do, how they should live, but none of that matters if you don't take time to ask yourself what actually matters to you. Silence gives you that time. It creates the space to ask better questions and find real answers. In the stillness of the early morning, there's no one to impress. There's no performance, just presence. And that presence reconnects you to your purpose. It sharpens your focus. It quiets the anxiety that builds when your mind is pulled in 10 different directions. Because in that moment, when it's just you, your breath, your thoughts, and the rising sun, there's honesty, there's grounding, there's peace. The clarity that comes from silence isn't passive, it's active. It gives you insight, but it also demands responsibility. When you see clearly, you can no longer pretend you don't know what needs to be done. You become aware of the changes you need to make, the habits you need to break, the steps you've been avoiding. And that awareness becomes the fuel for transformation. But you don't get there through noise. You don't get there by rushing. You get there by sitting with the silence and being willing to listen. Silence also builds mental strength. It teaches you to be still, to face your thoughts instead of running from them. In a world that constantly promotes stimulation, the ability to sit quietly and think deeply is rare, but it's a superpower. It's where vision is crafted, where solutions are born, where growth begins. It's not always comfortable, but it's always revealing. And the more you practice it, the more resilient you become. The early morning silence is a mirror. It shows you who you are without the filters. It shows you how focused or unfocused you've been. And it gives you a chance to reset, to realign, to start the day on purpose, not by accident. People often search for clarity in books, podcasts, advice from others, but the clearest voice is often the one inside you, waiting to be heard. You just have to quiet everything else long enough to listen. There's wisdom in silence, strength in stillness, and clarity in the quiet hours when the rest of the world is asleep. When you give yourself that space, you stop living reactively and start leading intentionally. You begin each day with a clear mind, an open heart, and a grounded sense of what really matters. That's where clarity begins, not in motion, but in stillness, not in the noise, but in the silence. Early routines forge legendary results. The actions you take at the start of each day set a standard for everything that follows. They are more than habits, they are declarations of intent. When you commit to a strong morning routine, you are no longer drifting through life hoping for change. You are shaping your days with precision, crafting your mindset, sharpening your discipline, and laying bricks that build toward something greater. Legends aren't born in moments of glory. They are forged in the repetition of small, focused choices made every single day, often in the earliest hours when no one is watching. The people we admire for their consistency, drive, and results didn't just stumble upon success. They created systems. They followed rituals. They showed up, especially when it was hard. That consistency, repeated over time, became their foundation. And it started with how they approached their mornings. While others slept, they moved. While others waited for motivation, they built momentum. They understood that greatness isn't spontaneous. It's structured. It's intentional. And that structure begins with routine. A powerful morning routine is like armor. It prepares you mentally, emotionally, and physically for the challenges ahead. Whether it's training your body, feeding your mind, or fueling your soul, those early rituals compound over time. They build discipline. They reinforce commitment. They keep your focus locked on your goals. Each action may seem small, waking up at a set time, journaling, meditating, exercising, reviewing your plans, but collectively they set a tone that becomes hard to break. Early routines also create identity. You start to see yourself differently. Not as someone who reacts to life, but as someone who leads it, as someone who follows through, as someone who shows up. This identity is powerful because it influences your choices throughout the day. You're less likely to waste time, less likely to give up when things get tough, because your day started with a win. You prove to yourself that you can lead yourself, and that belief carries weight. The key is consistency. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing it regularly, even when it's inconvenient. That's where the edge is found. Anyone can show up once. Anyone can crush one workout, one meditation, one day of discipline. But legends don't rely on single performances. They rely on habits, routines, and the quiet repetition that separates the serious from the casual. You don't need extreme talent to follow a routine. You need commitment. You need purpose. You need the will to choose what's hard over what's easy. Morning routines also protect your time. They carve out a space that belongs only to you. Before emails, calls, deadlines, and distractions, you own those moments. You decide how they're spent. You don't start your day in chaos because you've already created calm. That control is invaluable. It allows you to approach the rest of your day with clarity and strength instead of playing catch up or letting the world dictate your pace. It's in the routine that your vision takes root. Big dreams can feel overwhelming if they're not grounded in daily practice. But when you take those dreams and break them down into morning actions, into writing, studying, training, strategizing, they become manageable. They become real. That's where the magic is. Not in waiting for the perfect time, but in doing the work one morning at a time, regardless of how you feel. That discipline is what makes the difference. And there's something powerful about knowing you've already moved toward your goals while the world is still quiet. It builds confidence. It sharpens self-respect. You carry yourself differently throughout the day because you've already done the hard thing. That creates a ripple effect. You start making better decisions. You start staying locked in. You stop second-guessing yourself because your routine has already anchored you. This is why the legends, the leaders, the high performers, the change makers swear by their morning routines. Not because they enjoy waking up early every day, but because they know the cost of not doing it. They've seen how routine compounds, how it transforms, how it separates those who say they want it from those who live like they mean it. And the earlier you begin, the more powerful the results become. Not overnight, but over time, one disciplined morning after another.